What is up, my fellow Chibits? Today, I'm here to bring all of you the weekly anime review of Mach Comes In Like a Lion. And with this episode, it brings us a very different outlook on the series. We get to see our side character, Smith, and how he goes about his daily routine every morning, and also how he feels about people he verses in Shogi, and even it gives us some insight to how he feels about our main male character, Ray. So, the beginning of the episode starts off with Smith waking up, getting some food, just, doing the normal thing you do if you're first waking up in the morning, and overall, it's a very interesting way to go about the start of an episode. It just shows us this character and what he would do if he was not helping out and supporting our main male character throughout certain scenes of the series. Like, when we normally see Smith in the series, he's usually there in the Shogi room and all that, and you also see how he talks with Ray, and he's like, saying, who's Goto and all that, like, what's your history with him? Usually he's just a character that's there to show support to our main male character. He's like that background character that kind of progresses the series. But in this way, we get to see from a different perspective of how Mach Comes In Like a Lion really is. We see how this character stands out amongst the crowd, but also how he views the world around him, and it's kind of allowing us to see the world in a different perspective. Instead of just seeing the world throughout Ray's eyes, and how he views Shogi, how he views these other characters, how he views Smith and all that, we see Smith and how he views everyone around him, and how he views his own Shogi as well. And the direction of this episode is such a unique and different way than from anything else we have seen so far from this series, and even when it comes to the animation at the start of this episode, was I the only one that noticed that the animation at the beginning of this episode was very different compared to the rest of the stuff from the remainder of the episode? I mean, the episode gives us a flashback. Like, it's kind of like a previously on Mach Comes In Like a Lion. We get the opening song, and then we get this, introduction to how Smith goes about his daily routine. And the animation that is so different compared to everything else from the episode that I feel like that has to be some form of reference or meaning to that overall, besides just being a very unique look to the series. I feel like there's something else going on there. There's a bigger message to play there when it comes to that Smith scene, but the animation that scene, though, very different from everything else from the episode, and I honestly, I like that style. I was a big fan of that style. I know some might not like it because it looked like maybe the animation wasn't the best, but I do like that style of art and animation that we did see in that portion of the episode. But regardless of that, though, let's talk about Smith and how he views Shogi. So, what really made this episode for me was how we get to see the inside of how Smith feels about Shogi and the players around him, especially how he views the main male character. It's very rare, actually, to see the insight of a support character, like his inner mind, and see how he feels about some of our characters that are around him. For instance, when he's talking about Ray, how he's very smart, and also how this man, he's planning for his next players and Shogi, who he's gonna verse, and he wasn't even trying to take account for Smith probably fighting him. Smith is like, this upsets me, it makes me angry, but he's like, I know how I am and all that, and I judge my Shogi really harshly, and he's like, I know for a fact, and he felt bad that, Ray wasn't actually accounting for maybe Smith winning, but Smith actually was able to understand why Ray was doing that. It wasn't that Ray was trying to be an asshole. It wasn't that he was trying to be cocky and trying to make fun of Smith and think he's not important at all. It just, Ray was being very realistic. He was also being a professional. He was being someone that was actually viewing how a professional usually would be. For instance, if you know this person that is in, a certain, tournament, competition, whatever in life is very, very important and they've constantly won over and over, obviously you're going to train for them over the person you think is not going to win. And so when Smith says that in his mind, we get to see how he views, Ray, and how Ray is not really studying for him, but studying for maybe Goto instead of him. I like that scene overall. That was a very good scene of the episode, especially how Smith said that, and also how he wanted to go up against his opponent and win too. But what really caught me by surprise was his match against Goto. So Goto as a character, he's already been built up for the recent episodes to be like the villain type character. He's someone that's done a lot of damage to Ray. He punched him, and then also this upcoming match between Ray and, Goto, it's going to be more of a match instead of just trying to figure out who's the better Shogi player. It's more of like, oh, I'm going to defeat you to kind of get my feelings across of how I feel about you. And that's kind of the whole message of last week's episode, what that meant. And when we see this episode, we see Goto in a very different light. He's not shown in a very evil manner like he normally is. You know, he's looking down upon someone, he's trying to piss them off. He actually goes about talking to Smith and trying to encourage and support him to become a better Shogi player. Because that's what really threw me off guard. I did not expect to see something like that from his character after how he was introduced and how he's been built up through the previous episodes of March Comes In Like a Lion. And this really is why I think this episode is so unique. As I said, the series, or this episode actually, focuses on Smith, our side character, and it allows us to see through his eyes of how he views the people around him. So if some character or some person is maybe an asshole slash villain towards you, it doesn't mean that this villain is a villain towards everyone. And so it's kind of how we can view this episode. Goto, if he was fighting, you know, Rei, our main character, obviously Goto would act like probably an asshole towards Rei. But since it was just Smith, and Goto has really no hard feelings towards Smith at all, he treated him like a decent person, and he also gave him some encouraging words. Especially how he says, "You're very heavy, you didn't stick to your normal style towards the end, but overall it was some good shogi." I like that direction of the episode, so I would like to see more of that from the series. Hopefully this is not the last time we get to see from the, like the insight of a character's mind, and it's a side character instead of just our main character, Rei. But overall, though, it was a very good episode that I truly appreciated. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, how'd you all feel about this week's episode of March Comes In Like a Lion? How'd you feel about the animation at the beginning of the episode? And also, I have to admit that the music of this episode really stood out, actually. I don't know if it's just me, but the music seemed more, I guess, prominent throughout this episode. I felt like I noticed it more than I normally do when it comes to March Comes In Like a Lion. I'm not saying that, you know, the music is not good, because I haven't noticed it in previous episodes. I'm just saying the music really was on point with this episode. It was constantly backing up these scenes, helping out these scenes with Smith and all that, and I personally feel the reason why the music was so on point with this episode might be because it was focused around a support slash side character. I feel like many animators or whatever, if they try to make an episode like this, they're probably worried that many of the fans or people that watch the series might not like it, because usually fans want to stick to the main male character instead of going off onto a side character that really hasn't been much of the spotlight throughout the series. So I could probably see why they maybe wanted to make the music more noticeable throughout this episode, for it can actually show that they're putting more effort in to just say, oh, I can enjoy this episode because of the music as well. Maybe that's the reason, I have no idea, but overall, it was a very good episode of March Comes In Like a Lion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.